Andy Bannister asks if we should trust the Bible. Should we? Well, not without evidence. And let's be honest, Andy wouldn't know evidence if it ran over him on a scooter. So let's go take a look. I'm back with one of the increasingly rare Andy Bannister videos. They're harder to come by, but they aren't any more intelligent than they ever have been. This is one of the most absurd videos of his that I've seen, where he poses a question, then entirely ignores the question in favor of bad apologetics. Should you trust the Bible? Don't expect Andy to provide a clue. He hasn't got any to spare.
How can I trust the Bible? Is the question I often hear from people.
That's a good question that I doubt Andy is going to have a good answer to. All of Christianity relies on taking the Bible seriously and trusting what it says. But the vast majority of the Bible isn't independently testable, it cannot be verified through empirical or objective means, especially when it comes to the meat of the theological claims, which are entirely rationally indefensible. So let's see Andy try to spin this, shall we?
And I can appreciate the question because, let's be honest, the Bible is a difficult, complex book. Not least, we are separated from it by thousands of years of history and time and culture.
And also because it says a lot of things that are entirely nonsensical. Any non-religious book that made the kind of claims that the Bible and other religious texts do would be dismissed as mere mythology by pretty much everyone. But when emotion is involved, people tend to ignore the clear signs that this thing is nonsense.
The Bible also says things that challenge us. We read the Bible and there are things there that disagree with us, that provoke us, that don't necessarily agree with our presuppositions and our preferences.
That's a good reason to doubt it, because it says things that do not agree with what we see in the real world. It makes claims that cannot be verified and arguments which cannot be validated. The only reason anyone pays the Bible any mind is because they get emotionally attached to it and invested in its narrative.
Well, the first thing I want to have you think about here at this point is the fact that the Bible challenges us is interesting, right? Because the Bible ultimately is a story of a God who intends to have a relationship with human beings.
Yes, Andy, it's a story. So far as we can tell, most of the things, especially the supernatural bits, recorded in the Bible never actually happened in reality. Now, it might be a story that you happen to like, that you are emotionally in tune with, that you would really like to think is true, but that doesn't actually mean anything. Just because you like it doesn't mean it's so. Just because you are personally invested in the narrative doesn't mean that you ought to be. And this is a constant problem with the religious that think that their feelings dictate reality, when that's just not the case.
And there is something inherent about challenge when it comes to relationships. In fact, you can't have a relationship if there isn't challenge. For example, I've been married to my wife for over 20 years, but she sometimes says things that disagree with me. So maybe I should replace her with a robot, a bit like the movie The Stepford Wives. I could replace my wife with an automata who obeys my every command and never questions anything I ever say. That might lead to a little bit of domestic harmony for a while, but all relationship will be destroyed. There would be no relationship. It would only be a robot.
But at least your wife is demonstrably real. At least I'm assuming that because I've never seen her. But for the sake of argument, let's pretend that Andy doesn't have a hot Canadian girlfriend and that she's a real person. The point is that you can have an actual relationship with your wife because she exists. Something you cannot demonstrate with God. All you have is a story in a book of mythology that says God is real and wants something, and you have no means of justifying or verifying that any of this is factually correct.
For there to be a relationship, there needs to be challenge, and the same goes for God. But let's focus in on this idea of a relationship for a few moments, because I think another reason people sometimes struggle a bit with the Bible is they open it at random, they see some command or instruction there, and they think, who's the Bible to tell me what to do? And they take offense, because there's no relational context.
Andy, you're not actually telling us why we should trust the Bible. Let me go check the title of your video. Okay, It says, "How can I trust the Bible?" It does not say, "Andy Bannister makes excuses for the Bible." Get back on topic, Andy.
Commands outside of a context of a relationship always cause problems. Let me give you an illustration to show you what I mean. Imagine, for example, that I get up tomorrow morning and I come downstairs to make the coffee, and there on my doormat is a letter that purports to be from a family 20 streets away. Never met them, don't know them from Adam. And I open it up and they say, "Oh, dear Mr. Bannister, could you come round and take our bins out on your way to work this morning?" And of course I quite rightly think, who the heck are they? I don't know who they are. Why should I be taking their bins out?
Again, while you don't know who they are, you could certainly verify that they're real, something you simply can't do with God. You could, if you wished, have a relationship with these pushy people, whereas you really can't have any kind of demonstrable relationship with an invisible, intangible, indemonstrable deity that you believe in for purely emotional reasons. These aren't examples, these are rationalizations that don't recognize the inherent differences between the subject matter.
On the other hand, I come down tomorrow morning to make the coffee, and there is a little note on my fridge from my beloved wife that says, "Hi darling, please don't forget on your way to work this morning, do take the bins out." And of course I'm going to do that happily, no offence, delighted to do it, because there's a relationship.
No, it has nothing to do with a relationship, it has to do with responsibility. It's your job, presumably, to take the bins out, and your wife is just reminding you of that. She isn't ordering you to do it. She's reminding you that you've already agreed to it. Now, you could find a note on your door from the police, for example, that reminds you that you have to have your bins out by a certain time on a certain day. You have no relationship with them, but it's still your duty to do what you agreed to do under the law, at least for the sake of this argument. No relationship required.
The same, I would argue, goes in some way for God and his commands in the Bible. They're in the context of relationship.
A relationship that you can't demonstrate is real. So let's say that here I am, an atheist with no reason to think that your God exists at all, and you try to tell me that your book says God wants a relationship. Okay, why would I take you seriously? I mean, isn't that the question that you're supposed to be answering? Why would I, someone who does not currently trust the Bible, ever do so? What reason do I have for taking this book of mythology as anything else? Your word? Why would I trust you? See, this is exactly where these apologists get it all wrong. They ask questions, and then they assume that everyone that hears the questions already agrees with them on the answer. But why would we? He hasn't said anything here that would turn a non-believer into a believer, because he assumes that everyone he's talking to already is, and therefore already trusts the Bible. And if that's the case, why is he asking the question in the first place?
So that raises the question, how do you have a relationship with God?
No, the question is, how can I trust the Bible? You're making this video, and you have no idea what question you actually asked. As for this new question, you'd have to prove that God is real first. It's not possible to have a relationship with something that does not demonstrably exist. But we all know that Andy won't do that, right?
Well, of course, if God didn't want a relationship with us, we'd be a bit stuffed. But the amazing news at the heart of the Christian faith is the God of the universe does want a relationship with us.
The amazing truth at the core of Lovecraftianism is that Cthulhu wants a personal relationship with you because you taste good smothered in ketchup. It's a totally empty claim to anyone who doesn't already believe it has credibility, which is utterly stupid.
And to that end has revealed himself in three ways. He's a God who's revealed himself to us in creation. We can look around at this incredible, intricate, beautifully designed world that God has made and deduce a few things about the God who's made it.
We can do nothing of the sort because there's no reason to think that it was created at all, much less by your specific imaginary friend.
He's revealed himself through the Bible. The Bible is primarily intended to reveal what God is like and his character, his heart, his identity to us. He reveals himself, number two, through the Bible.
Again, not demonstrable. These are just claims, not evidence for the claims. It is an emotional appeal to people who are too weak-willed and weak-minded to stand on their own 2 feet and deal with reality as it objectively appears to be. You'd have to prove that any of that is credible, but we all know that's not going to happen.
But he doesn't stop there, because the God of the universe, the God who created this reality that we find ourselves in, has also stepped into history in and through Jesus Christ. He's come in the person of Jesus. So the idea being that if you want to know what God is like, look at Jesus.
How exactly do you do that, since we have no objectively verifiable evidence that Jesus ever existed at all? This is just claim after claim after claim aimed solely at people who aren't skeptical enough to question any of them, because that's what Christian apologists target. The gullible, the overly emotional, the downright stupid. Andy has no interest in backing anything up. This video isn't about how you can trust the Bible. It's aimed at people who already unquestioningly do trust the Bible. And he's off in tangent land somewhere because he knows he doesn't have to follow through on his clickbaity title.
How do we come to know this Jesus? Well, the answer is you pick up the Bible.
The Bible that you haven't shown is trustworthy, you mean? You know, little things.
And turn to one of the Gospels in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, one of those 4 historical biographies of Jesus of Nazareth.
Which you haven't actually shown are historical. This is just more bald assertions from the king of bald assertions.
And read those. Read one of them with the desire of discovering what Jesus is like and through him what God is like. And as you do, suddenly you discover that you think you're reaching out to find out about God, and actually you discover through the pages he's reaching out to you.
Only if you have an absurdly overactive imagination. Are we supposed to think that Harry Potter is reaching out to us through the pages of J.K. Rowling's books? We have no reason to think that God is real. Why would anyone with half a clue think that some fantasy character in a book of mythology is reaching out to them? It's utterly insane until this God character is actually shown to be real.
When God reveals himself to you through the person of Jesus and through the Gospels, I tell you there is nothing quite like it. Jesus said that those who seek will find. And my prayer for those of you who are watching this, who genuinely want to know God, is that as you read the Gospels, you would encounter him in and through the pages of Scripture, but particularly in and through the person of Jesus Christ, his Son.
I genuinely care about the truth. And the only way to reach truth, real truth, demonstrable truth, is through evidence. Not through books, not through faith, not through wishful thinking, through evidence. And that's the one thing the religious simply don't have, and that makes the whole exercise rationally futile. But don't tell Andy Bannister and his camp of religious crazies that, because they don't care. It's not even on their radar. They can't even keep a video straight or answer a simple question that they themselves have posed. Nowhere did Andy explain how we can trust the Bible. It was just a given, a presumption, no thought required. It's just worthy of trust because he wants it to be. But it's not. Nothing is automatically trustworthy. Everything has to be critically examined. Everything needs evidence, and Andy's side has none of that. They don't even pretend. They just want you to shut up and believe. And my answer is no. I don't want a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. I want a personal relationship with reality. If Jesus is real, fine. But you have to get to that point first, and the religious don't even try. They just assume because it makes them feel good. But I don't care about your feelings. I care about your facts, and I don't think Andy would know a fact if a metric ton of them fell on his head. That's why Andy has failed, because Andy, like so many other small-time religious shysters, really doesn't care if the words coming out of his mouth mean anything. He just wants people to believe him and his religious drivel. No thanks, Andy. Not until you have more than just your silly beliefs. You need evidence. Strong, objective, defensible evidence. And we all know you have none of that.